So not only is the very structure of life calibrated to increase and perfect our suffering, Schopenhauer argues, he then goes on to say that happiness itself, heaven you might say, or utopia, is impossible for us. Now that should already be obvious if life is suffering, but he wants to assume that it is possible and show that the very notion of happiness produces what we might call a dilemma. And so the second part of his argument that life sucks is that lasting happiness is impossible, because even if it were possible, it would actually produce more suffering. We have what is called a dilemma. Now, a dilemma is an old form of argument that's a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of argument. A great example of this is a mother was trying to convince her son not to go into politics. And so she argued thus. She said, look, if you go into politics, son, you're either going to have to lie or tell the truth. If you tell the truth, then the people will hate you. If you lie, then the gods will hate you. So either you're going to tell the truth, and therefore you're damned if you do, or you're not going to tell the truth, and then you're really damned. So that's the idea of a dilemma, is that no matter the yes or no, either way, it all turns out to turn poorly for you. So in what way is happiness like this? Well, you're either going to get it or you're not, right? You're either going to get this lasting fulfillment of desire or not. We have to be very clear what we mean by happiness and what the only thing we can mean by happiness is. There is no objective fulfillment. There's no God. And so there's no, oh, I did a good job, God's going to reward me. No. The only kind of happiness we can ever have is the fulfillment of the things we desire, right? So it's desire fulfillment. So either your desires are fulfilled in a lasting way or they're not. So let's say you get lasting happiness, perfect fulfillment. Well, what does that mean? Fulfillment means you get what you want. And either that fulfillment is one that completes itself or it doesn't. And what do I mean by completing itself? Well, again, think about one desire that we all have, and that's to eat a good meal. So we're hungry, and we'll be happy if we eat a good meal and it fills us up. So we eat that meal, it fills us up. Well, that's the kind of desire that will end, isn't it? It's got to end, because the very pleasure of eating when you're hungry is the feeling that you're fulfilling that desire. And that desire will eventually, therefore, be quenched. That's the kind of thing you're looking for when you fulfill desire, is the quenching of desire. Well, you quench the desire. So now we imagine perfect quenching of desire. All of your desires are fulfilled. All of them are quenched. All of them are gone. Well, if you don't desire it anymore, you don't want it, right? The desire is to want something that you don't have. Once you get what you want, it follows that you no longer want it. And so therefore, it's no longer desirable to you. You no longer are attracted to it. You know this by being full. Have you ever eaten so much that you feel like, I can never eat another bite? The very glance of food, the very thought of eating again sickens you. That's what we're talking about. Once desire is perfectly quenched, the thing that was desirable to you, that you thought, if only I could have it, if only that gave, then I would be fulfilled, now becomes something which is odorous to you. And so therefore, the minute you get what you want, you no longer want it, do you? And therefore, you are left in a state of boredom. Boredom is the state when you don't have anything to do, because there's nothing you want, and it's itself a state of torture. If you've ever been in a state of boredom, and we all have, we know that does not feel good. And so either your desires are quenched, and that leads to madness, he says. Madness because imagine a world where every desire, the minute you had it, it was fulfilled. what a boring existence. You would go crazy with boredom because you would reach a state where you would be in total boredom and therefore be seeking for anything to do. And states like that would be chaos. And so a world where everybody's desires was filled would be a world mad with boredom. So then what is the pleasure of fulfillment? Well, it's the act of fulfillment itself. When I'm drinking something as I'm thirsty, it's that feeling of being fulfilled. It's the process of fulfillment that gives me that pleasure that I then call happiness, isn't it? So it's a really hot day. It's been a long day. I'm sweating. I've just worked all day digging ditches. And now I want the Miller High Life. I take that Miller. It's so cold, and I start to drink it, and it starts to quench my thirst. It's that process of quenching that really is the enjoyable thing, isn't it? Well, what does it look like? It's that process of fulfillment. Fulfillment. Can it end? We suppose it doesn't in this scenario, right? We suppose that I'm constantly feeling the process of being fulfilled, but also feeling the process of it never ending. And so therefore I would go mad with torture because I would have this constant striving toward fulfillment that is never completed. The very feeling of fulfillment goes away because it becomes a vain process that never ends. I'm constantly reaching a state where I feel I'm on the verge of having my thirst quenched, but still I'm thirsty. It's as if I'm eating and eating and eating and never getting full. And so the reason why that feeling of quenching thirst is enjoyable is because it comes to an end. So perfect fulfillment is impossible because either fulfillment occurs and then I achieve this state of boredom, of not even wanting what I wanted anymore and not having anything to live for, or I reach this statement of never ending chasing after that which never ends, and it becomes torture. So that's the case where I get it. It's even more obvious what happens when I don't, or when I lose it. Maybe I get it, but it ends, right? And so I have this idea of I get this fulfillment. It is pleasurable to the max. I go on a trip that I love to Rome. I see everything I want to see. I have such a great time, but it comes to an end. I have to go back to work. I had the time of my life, and now I lose it. Well, to the extent that I enjoyed it, that's the extent that I will desire it again, won't I? The more I enjoyed it, the more, because it came to an end, I want it. And therefore, the more I want what I can't have. Because I can't go back. You all know this. You've had those experiences where you had the time of your life, and then you try to repeat it. And does it ever feel the same? No, because like we said before, now you've idealized it with what is called nostalgia. And thus, the minute you try to repeat it, it will never measure up to what you remember it to have been. And so you're always going to be striving for what was great in that pleasure and will never be able to get it. You will have an eternal desire that can never be quenched precisely because you enjoyed it and you lost it. Well, either you got it and you lost it, or you never got it to start with. That's obviously suffering because you have the disappointment of never getting it. You have the dissatisfaction of wanting what you cannot have, what you don't get. And therefore, in all of these scenarios, the one constant is this. Happiness is impossible. Even when you get it, it leads to more suffering. Either the suffering of boredom, of not getting what you want precisely by getting what you want. There was a much earlier book that expressed everything that Schopenhauer is expressing in modern terms. It's in the Bible. It's called Ecclesiastes, or in Hebrew, Kohelet. And it's supposedly written by Solomon, the wisest man in existence, who is writing at the end of his life, and he sums up life like this. He says, life is a chasing after the wind. You ever try to chase the wind? What if you catch it? If you catch the wind, it's not the wind anymore, isn't it? Because what you've caught is trapped, and what is trapped doesn't move, and what doesn't move is not wind. The minute you get the wind, you've lost it, haven't you? And that's life. It's a chasing after the wind. Either you get the wind or you don't. What you get, you no longer have, and what you don't get, you suffer because you don't have. So you either suffer from getting it, or suffer from not getting it, or suffer from getting it and losing it. In all cases, you suffer. And so happiness turns out to be not only impossible, but the more you get it, the more you suffer. Life sucks, doesn't it? It's a chasing after the wind. It's this meaningless task of rolling a stone uphill and having it roll all the way back down again, and you have this unquenchable desire to go ahead and do the same thing over again. This is what is called the punishment of Sisyphus. Life sucks. It's a chasing after the wind. It's long-winded when you live long, and it's short-winded when you don't live long enough. In either case, it's a tragedy. So thus we come to this idea of tragedy. We said that life sucks, but this also leads to the point that it's not worth it. So our next video will then explain in detail why this suffering isn't worth it.